In this video, I'll walk through how to build this window bench with storage. Check it out. Step one will be to remove the baseboard trim there and pull back the carpet. All right, starting to cut the boards, and we're framing it out with 2x4s here. I'm screwing right into the wall there. I marked where the studs were with my stud finder, so I'll know exactly where I can drill into the wall. And I measured out what I want my total width of the bench to be. See, I got an electrical outlet that's gonna get covered there. I have an air/heating vent I need to account for. So I'm gonna be cutting into that one. You can see I already screwed this one to the wall, just some 2-inch screws. They could probably be, actually I used 2.5 inch, they could probably be 2-inch. But then I marked on the wall, or you can see my trim cut there. I marked on the wall where I want the 2x4 to stop, because I'm accounting for a 1/4-inch piece of plywood, and then the trim, which is a 1x3 piece of trim. Actual dimensions would be 3/4 of an inch. So this is 3/4 of an inch plus the 1/4 inch plywood. That will make this be absolutely flush. I'm thinking I might do a actual trim piece along the front as well to make it look even more seamless with the room. So for the frame, I'm placing my studs where the drawers are going to be, or the chest doors. So there's going to be 3 individual doors that open up. I want to make sure I have a 2x4 support there that I can rest on. It's plenty stable, plenty strong, but it's going to make things easier here in a little bit when I'm putting the top on. So I've screwed the 2x4 to the wall. This is going to be the top part. We got some pocket holes going. I haven't screwed those in yet, and need to do a couple more cuts. These support beams, I measured out. My total width here is 102 inches, so divided by 3, we have 34-inch markings where these studs will go and the doors will end. I'll end up painting all the inside of this so it looks a little bit nicer when you open it. The next sort of challenge is dealing with this vent. I need to get a 90-degree turn here so I can actually get the hot air into our room, because this is the only vent. So you can see over here, once this gets pulled in, That gap there is going to be perfect for the 1/4 inch plywood and the 3/4 of an inch accent sort of trim, and it will line up right there. So that's going to work out nicely. So I just need to do some more cuts. I'll screw everything in, and then I'll do the supports. We're going to want it to come up right about here, below the windowsill, because I'm going to account for the 3/4 inches of plywood, as well as any kind of cushion or pillows my wife wants to put on. All right, frame is completely done, and we are level, so that's good. Everything is screwed in tight and screwed into the wall as well. I just put screws where I knew the studs were. Here's where I marked earlier, and it's looking pretty good. It's definitely feeling stable. Definitely not going anywhere. All right, we just installed the little vent angle. You can see I taped it. I used this 3M foil tape specifically for a vent. There wasn't the exact thing I needed because the space was so short. So we're sort of jerry-rigging a little bit. You can hopefully see I taped on the inside as well as the outside. The main concern is making sure no air is getting out of the vent. So looks like that's the case. Gonna add some supports in here on either side for the actual vent, which is right here. So that'll go right over that, and this will be blowing out. So I throw those supports in, and then we'll have to get the 1/4 inch plywood up front here. All right, so I got some additional support here with the 2x4s and pocket holes, basically closing that off. Since it's not a perfect fit, I'm just gonna be using that foil tape to secure it, and I'm building a little housing around it too. So this is just some 1/4 inch plywood, or maybe it's 5/8 plywood. I'm gonna probably just glue there and then put this top piece on over top of it, so it's not completely wasted space. We'll be able to set something there for storage too. After that, I'll tape it off. All of this is going to get painted as well. So a little housing here. I used some wood glue and countersunk some screws here so it's flat. This will all get painted on the inside, of course. And then I used more of the foil tape so there's no gaps. It's coming straight from the actual vent out here. Okay, so I have everything dry fitted here. Nothing's nailed in, it's just clamped. We have the vent in. I used a reciprocating saw to cut out the slot for it. Made sure there is a stud right where the screw will go for it, so it'll stay nice and snug. Next step is to finish priming everything, and well, next step is to screw everything in. I'm going to use some screws and some 18 gauge nails, and then fill those holes and prime everything again. Now I have everything screwed and nailed in. I actually did some wood filling, so I filled the seams here with this Minwax wood filler. It's supposed to dry white, which it sort of looks like it will. It doesn't really matter because I'm painting over top of it, but I used this spatula looking paint scraper thing to fill everything in. It's pretty cheap plywood, so there were some uneven marks, so that'll dry overnight. I'll sand it in the morning and paint over top of it. All right, so the wood filler had time to dry overnight. I sanded it down with 220 grit sandpaper. It feels pretty smooth. You can sort of tell where the actual wood filler is because it's sort of an off-white color compared to my white base there, but I'm getting a lot of dust on my fingers from rubbing this, so I definitely don't want to paint over that, or the paint's just not going to stick very well. I'm going to use this. It's called a tack cloth. It sort of looks like a cheesecloth, but it's got some kind of waxy material, and just wipe this down, and it's going to grab all those little dust particles, so it's going to make the paint go on much nicer. If you don't have one of these, it's okay. You can use a paper towel or a rag to wipe it down, a damp rag, but then you have to wait until it dries, so this is saving me a little bit of time here, because right after I'm done wiping this, you see, there's that white dust there, so that's a good sign. Next, we're gonna paint using this stain blocking bonding primer. This is left over from another project I had, so hopefully there's enough here, and I'm using this cheap foam brush. It's like 90 cents or $1, so I can throw it away afterwards and not feel bad. So I'll get everything primed outside and in again, let that dry for a couple hours, and come back to see if I'm happy with the way it looks, and hopefully we don't have to use more wood filler. All right, primer is now drying, and it looks pretty good. I did the inside. I haven't done the floor yet because I'm not sure if I'm gonna put in something else, some kind of plywood or something to cover that, or really if my wife cares. It's very noticeable to me. There's a seam right here, so I'm gonna go back with some wood filler right here too a little bit. I'm gonna go back with some wood filler and try to make that disappear. That'll need to dry for a few hours, but I have the trim that I'm gonna use here. I primed that as well in the garage. And we'll be able to nail that up here in a second. Doesn't really matter the top here. You can see I got it above the wall there. There's gonna be 3/4 inch plywood on top here, so it doesn't really matter if it's perfect. I didn't tape anything off or feel the need to, because that'll disappear. But it's looking pretty good. All right, while we're waiting for the wood filler to finish drying, I'm going ahead and going to cut the carpet here. We have this tack strip. This is dual purpose tack strip I grabbed from Home Depot, I believe. And this is going to help us hold down the carpet. So it has these nails that you'll just hammer in, and then there's all these little tacks. There's a 90-degree edge and an angled edge. you can see there the arrows are pointing towards the wall, or the arrows should be pointed towards the wall. So as you set it down, it's pulling the carpet that way. So it's going to keep it from moving back. So I'm going to run this all along here. I'm actually going to vacuum it out first, lay this down, figure out where I need to cut the carpet, nail this in, and lay the carpet down. I'm doing that first because it's going to determine these trim pieces will be flush against the carpet. So there's going to be a little bit of give or fudge room there. But we need to put this in first so we can know how long the dividers, trim pieces in the middle are going to go. I mean, there's going to be two, one on each side, so 4 total, and then dividing there as well. So that's the next step that we can do while we wait. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let's vacuum. And this should not be absolutely flush against it. You want a little bit of room back. I think these are 24-inch or 2 feet long strips. And they're gonna go maybe a 1/4 inch back from the actual unit there. And then I'll hammer them in. So that's in. Now we cut the carpet. I'm just using an X-Acto knife. I'm gonna flip it around so it's nice and sharp. And I don't have any tricks with this. Is just hold it up and cut it best you can. This phone is not working. I use this all. I use it with it. All right, so I'm gonna do the top trim first, and then I'll do the sides and then the bottom, so I know exactly how far down it should go. I'm using this Type Bond 2 wood glue, and I'm just gonna put a bead on the back and spread it around, and then use a brad nailer to hold it in. So now I'm in the garage and I'm cutting this 3/4 inch plywood. This is some birch plywood, sanded plywood I actually got for free on the Facebook Marketplace. So this definitely saved a lot of money on the project. I'm cutting this to length with the miter saw, and then I'm over to the table saw for the width. All right, here we are in the garage with the lid, or the top part of the bench. I got it primed with a drywall primer left over from another project. Now we're using a cabinet paint. It's an ultra white that will harden up really nicely. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that on one side, let it dry, flip it over, do the other side, and bring everything upstairs. We have the primer dried, and now we're ready for the top coat. Using the same cabinet paint I just used on the top pieces down in the garage. I'll paint this up, let it dry, and put it all together. We have the vent installed, the final coat of paint is on, everything looks even. It worked out pretty nicely, making these seams disappear with the wood filler, and the paint over that looks really nice. I have the top primed and painted, and I'm using these piano hinges, is what they're called. I grabbed from Lowe's. I'm gonna do 2 on each door or lid here. If they were longer, obviously I could just use 1, but I have these 2 separate pieces because the hinge needs something to screw into so it can actually work. So first step is to countersink some screws into this piece. This is 3/4 inch plywood that I painted earlier. So I'm gonna use this wood glue as well. So I'm gonna glue and screw these in, let that dry for a couple hours, and then attach the actual lid. So it's important that there is a seam there to actually account for the hinge. And it's important that there's a seam here so the doors aren't rubbing on each other when you raise and lower them, as well as the sides here. You don't want them rubbing against your wall when you open and close them. So it's coming together nicely. The vent looks pretty good, even though it's not centered. So we're on the home stretch now. All right, so I'm using these 2-inch wood screws, a Phillips head. You can see my pre-drilled hole and countersink is sort of an angle, so I make sure I hit the 2x4 that's under there. It was important to line this up to make sure the actual angles and the lid is going to be flush there. So this is in the exact spot, considering the exact gap that I need. So I just want to roll this. I don't really want to move it. I just want to roll it up, not like that. Make sure we're right back there. I just want to roll this little piece up. And you can see where the pre-drilled spots went through. I'm just doing a bead of the wood glue here. Wood glue is probably overkill, but overkill is underrated, so. Okay, here we are with the back strip screwed in and glued in, and the other piece is just laying. You can see the seams aren't perfectly even. It doesn't really matter too much because there's gonna be a cushion over this, so no one will even see it. So with this, if you care, or if you're not doing a cushion, you could do wood filler in that. I'm probably just gonna sand that off and leave the screws exposed, because again, we're gonna have a cushion over ours, so it doesn't really matter too much. But you could fill it in with wood glue and paint over top of it if you are just gonna have a wooden bench here.
All right,
So I got some good news. I found a 30-inch piano hinge, so I'm going to return the other 12-inch one so it can look nicer. And I'm going to install these. So they come with all these little screws, which seem like they wouldn't be strong enough. But there's a lot of them, so it actually is, and it's better to use these small screws, I think, because the heads are flat, so the hinge is gonna lay as close as possible, which is what we want. So when you're installing it, you want to make sure that you're doing the actual door first and then you're attaching it. Otherwise, you're going to be trying to like drill up into it, and it's just going to be a hassle. So hopefully you can see this here. And I'm just laying this in the middle. And this is the side that will get attached up there. I'm going to pre-drill the holes so drilling the screws in is easier for me. All right, we're all done. Hinges installed. And now we just need a cushion. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you aren't already, and God bless.